Story 1. The alarm clock rang, breaking the silence of the apartment in the middle of the night. Yegor Savelyevich Terekov reached for the phone, lying on the worn bedside table, and pressed the off button. It was time to get ready for work. In the bathroom, he splashed cold water on his face, looking at his familiar features in the mirror. 42 years old, graying dark hair, deep wrinkles around his eyes, traces of sleepless nights and daytime sleep. Working as a security guard at the premium auto parking lot didn't bring in much money, but at least it allowed him to pay for utilities and buy groceries. Pulling on his blue uniform jacket with the security company's patch, Yegor Savelyevich checked the contents of his pockets. A photon flashlight, a set of keys, a pack of cigarettes, a lighter, and an old folding knife. It was a gift from his grandfather, which he carried more out of habit than for protection. In his breast pocket was a walkie-talkie, an antediluvian model that half the time picked up interference from a nearby radio station. The bus ride to the parking lot took 20 minutes. Yegor Savelyevich sat by the window, watching. The familiar courtyards of the Northern District flashed by like behind glass. The October evening was surprisingly warm. It was the last gift of the passing Indian summer. He got off at the industrial zone stop and walked the remaining 300 meters to the parking lot. The premium car was located on the outskirts of the industrial area, surrounded by abandoned factory buildings and warehouses. A high fence made of corrugated metal surrounded an area the size of a football field. Inside, cars stood in neat rows, from budget domestic sedans to expensive foreign cars. BMW X5S, Mercedes S-classes, several. Lexus. Expensive toys that their owners preferred to keep under surveillance rather than in the courtyards of residential areas. Michael Lick, the day security guard with a scar across his left cheek, was waiting for him at the gate. Terekov. Finally, he grumbled, taking a thermos of tea out of the booth. "I thought you'd be late, like last time." "No. Mikhailuk, everything's fine." "What's the situation?" "It's quiet." The owner of that black BMW 7 Series came and took it for the weekend. "Everything else is as usual. There are just a bunch of drunks hanging around." He nodded toward the abandoned factory. "I saw 3 of them." "Be careful." Yegor Savelyevich nodded. And social elements were a constant problem in the area. They were looking for a place to make some money. Steal non-ferrous metal, break windows, steal car stereos. They usually didn't bother with guarded parking lots. But anything could happen. Mikhailuk handed him the patrol log and the keys to the booth. Something was wrong with the wiring in the corner. The lights were flickering. The electrician said he would come tomorrow, but for now, everything was quiet. "See you later." He left, leaving Yegor Savelyevich alone with 100 cars and an 8-hour night shift ahead of him. The booth smelled of cheap cigarettes and equality tap there. A small TV in the corner was showing the evening news. Yegor Savelyevich turned off the sound and turned on the radio. Calm, instrumental music poured from the speaker, just what he needed for a long night. He made his first rounds of the territory at 9:30. The flashlight picked out shiny hoods and bumpers from the darkness, illuminating the empty spaces between the rows of cars. Everything was quiet. A pile of construction debris lay by the far fence, remnants of the renovation of the neighboring warehouse. After checking the locks on the gates and the integrity of the fence, he returned to the booth. At 11 p.m., he made an entry in the log. 10:50 p.m. patrol of the territory, no violations detected. He took a sausage sandwich and a thermos of tea out of his bag. He turned on the TV quietly. NTV was showing a program about copper. They were reminiscing about events from 7 years ago. It was funny to see footage from the late 90s, which seemed so distant, even though not much time had passed. Around midnight, it started to drizzle. The raindrops drummed on the roof of the booth, creating a monotonous rhythm. Yegor Savelevich poured himself some more tea and lit a cigarette. The night promised to be long and quiet. That's how they usually were. Sometimes he wondered why a security guard was needed at this parking lot at all. In 2 years of work, there had never been a single serious incident. A couple of times, teenagers climbed over the fence to sit in someone else's car and listen to music, but it was more for fun than an attempt at theft. He went on his second patrol of the night. The rain intensified, and he pulled up the hood of his jacket. Water ran down the asphalt, forming puddles between the cars. The flashlight illuminated the wet surfaces, which reflected the light, creating bizarre glare. He stopped at a white Mercedes in the third row. It seemed that the driver's door was slightly open. He approached and shone the light inside the cabin. No, everything was fine. The door was closed. Returning to the booth, he heard a sound behind the fence, as if someone had stepped on a tin can. He stopped and listened. Silence. Only the sound of rain. Probably a cat or a dog. There were quite a few stray animals in the industrial zone. At 2:30 in the morning, Yegor Savelevich was dozing, leaning back in his chair. His head was nodding. Chest, and there was silence in his ears, broken only by the monotonous patter of rain on the roof of the booth. The sharp sound made him jump. Something metallic fell with a crash or was thrown aside. The sound came from the main gate. Yegor Savelevich woke up instantly and looked out the window of the booth. In the light of the street lamp above the gate, he could make out the silhouettes of 3 people. One of them was doing something alone, while the other 2 stood on either side, apparently on guard. Even from a distance, it was clear that they were young, athletic guys in dark clothes and hats. Yegor Savelevich's heart began to beat faster. In 2 years of work, this had never happened before. What to do? The instructions required immediate reporting of any intrusion into the territory to the security company's duty station and the police. But the radio only worked intermittently, and the cell phone only picked up a signal in open spaces. He quietly opened the door of the booth and slipped outside. He needed to get closer to the gate, to see what was happening and try to make a phone call.